What it do, Speed Demon crew? It's your boy, Speed Demon. Today, I got a little bit of a gift for you. As of the end of the Amazing Digital Circus, this is a special thesis project with a friend of mine, going over things that we know and things that we enjoy about the show and possible theories that we could have moving forward. Though we do know that it is over and there is no second season, that everything ended at the movie, we still want to discuss a couple of things that we've had on our minds since the story began. Spoiler warning ahead. This is for the movie. If you haven't seen it, don't watch. Without further ado, welcome to the Amazing Digital Thesis.
All right, cool. So now that we've finished watching the Amazing Digital Circus and gone through a lot of different theories, there's a lot of things that I feel like I should cover. In my case, there's one subject, at least for this recording's sake, that we've already spoken about, that I really want to talk about, and that is Jax. Jax is a very interesting character in this sense. Like, I'll admit, like, I'm a fan of asshole characters. That's what Jax is. He's designed to be this thwarting piece of plot for the rest of our main characters, but he's still part of that main cast. Then we get to the finale, which he abstracts. There's, like, I say no real rhyme or reason behind it, but there is. And I was talking with a friend of mine who had just watched the movie yesterday, because this is, 2 days now since the movie came out? And they go, I feel so bad for my boy Jax. He deserves so much better. And I go, why would you think that? They're like, he's just misunderstood. He just needs reassurance. He's scared. I go, that does not excuse his actions, right? Because let's go back through the timeline of what Jax is supposed to be. And feel free to stop me if you ever feel like that I'm in the wrong here.
Good.
So from what we know, Jax exactly didn't have the best life at home. He didn't have his father growing up. And from what we can tell, his mother, he thought that he did kill her because she was insulting him, berating him, and then went in for a hug. And then he pushed her, and then she didn't get back up. So he ran away. Eventually, he ended up finding his way to the circus. Started panicking. He befriended Ribbit. Ribbit was the very first person that we can genuinely say he had a genuinely good connection with until he finally opened up and completely avoided her afterwards. Literally denying everything that happened between them, which, in my mind, I could slightly understand, but then it got to a point where he was talking with Kaufmo, and he goes, hey, if you hear Ribbit say anything about me, just know that she's lying. Like, okay, you're starting to push it a little bit, dude. Like, I get, like, yes, 100%, I can understand that you were scared about expressing your emotions. But, like, at this point, you're literally spreading lies to protect your own image, which you don't need. Like, it's so, I don't know, it's weird to me, right?
Yeah.
And then Ribbit abstracts, and he forces Ragatha to never say Ribbit's name again. And then he starts avoiding Kaufmo. And then Kaufmo abstracts at the very beginning of the series. And people want to say that he deserves better. I'm sorry to break it to you, but he doesn't. Everything that happened to him was his fault. Like, everything could have been avoided if he wasn't such a prick. Like, again, I'm for asshole characters, but there's a way to go about it, right? I'm not saying that I hate Jax. I don't. I do find him an interesting character. But because he's played so well as the asshole character, it's kind of hard to give him redemption, which I don't believe he deserves. At the very, very end of the movie, it was made very well known that they're all just brain scans, and the actual body that they were originally is still out in the real world doing things, like actually living their life. And Jax's actual body, whose name I forget currently, he lives on He learned that his mom is. Well, I mean, he wasn't there because abstraction. But his mom is alive, but he did cut ties with her because he doesn't want that kind of relationship. Now he has a genuinely decent job. He's staying with a friend. He's living a good life. But the Jax that we know doesn't know that his mom is alive. As far as he knows right now, he has 3 bodies to his name. It sucks to suck. Like, truly, it does. But, like, Jax, I believe, Circus Jax does not deserve a redemption. And honestly, I'll even stand on this hill. He got what he deserved. Like, he does, You have adamantly tortured everyone that you've come into contact with since you entered the circus. Like, I can't sit here and say, like, oh, he deserves better. No, he doesn't. Like, he has burned every bridge he came into contact with since entering the circus. What part of that means that he deserves better?
Essentially, and that's why I was just hearing it out right now, because that's the exposition, right? That's what we need for anyone who's not caught up, or at least didn't understand the ending episode, right? That's our understanding as it stands. Anything could come out at this point. Any facts, any creator notes or whatever. They at any point they could prove us wrong overnight.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but that being said, what we have to go on, it's safe to assume that everything's pretty straightforward from our perspective in terms of Jax being the asshole character, deserving of to some degree some type of consequence, I guess, for I wouldn't even say his own behavior, but just also the fact that everything is a product of his decision making, his mindset, etc. Right.
And one thing that I do want to emphasize, which I'm sure I probably already said, is all of this was entirely his fault. Everything that happened, like, you cannot forgive him because, he had a bad relationship with his parents, right? I'm sorry, but that's no excuse for the actions that he committed against the circus members. Because, as I've already stated to you, and for the record of this recording, Jax knows everything in there is real. The whole deal with it, and people are going to be like, no, he didn't. That's incorrect. He was deluding himself. He wanted to believe everything wasn't real, because that way everything that he does doesn't have consequences. I'm sorry to break it to you, but he does know it's real. It hit him like a freight train when Kinger finally revealed, like, oh yeah, no, I'm this programmer that created Kane partially with Scratch, or Mike Dobby, right?
Yeah.
Jax, he had to get away because it was very hard for him to process, I have been actually lying to myself this entire time.
Yeah.
He knew he was. That's not, a crazy statement. Mm-hmm. He knows everything that happened in there was real. First, we could get evidence from the fact that he talked about his real life with Ribbit. And then after her death, he had to find a way to cope, and it kind of turned him into the asshole that we know today. Well, I don't want to say that that's the reason, but he does that to cope because he doesn't want to acknowledge everything that already happened to him, which, again, I can understand to an extent, but that does not give him an excuse to do what he has done to the rest of the circus members. I mean, let's take Zubal's examples back in episode 7. When he fed Gangle to a school of piranhas, threw Zubul in an active volcano, mailed them a pipe bomb, and then what constantly breaking Gangle's mask, even in episode 4, when that was an accident, which I can see 100% that was, right? But at the same time, he also knows about the whole, hey, we can pretty much do whatever we want. he has those imagination-esque rules. Not to the same extent that Kinger would, because Kinger's way more experienced with it, but he's fully aware, like, yeah, we're cartoon characters. Like, if I think it, and it just happens, right? So people can make the argument that, okay, sure, that he did that on purpose. But if I'm being completely honest, I do think it was an accident. Like, that was him legitimately participating, and then Ragatha went off on him. Sure, okay, you could understand both ways. In my personal opinion, I think that it was an accident on his part, and, that's the end of that. But for the most part, he does break her mask on purpose. He does torture everybody in there. As he stated in episode 6, you are my playthings, and I get joy out of making you suffer.
That's a quote from Jax, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, because, and that's why I said to you earlier, the way I look at Jax and the way I look at Kane, they're kind of both sides of the same coin. Because right now, with that
extremes of isolation.
No, they're exactly, and it's funny because that actually happens in the last episode. My thing though is that what that quote alone, quotation, right, is like I could hear Kane saying that as well, right?
Okay, yeah.
Maybe that's more obviously that's more of a side note. I didn't want to interrupt your flow, but I was just curious. Like, can you at least hear Kane saying something
100%. Knowing what happens in episode 8 and then moving into episode 9, at least up until a point where he is in isolation by himself, I could 100% hear him saying that exact same line. And we can honestly move on from the train wreck that is Jax and move on to the other train wreck that is Kane, which I find a very interesting character. There's one thing that I've always had a thought about, and it was revolving around Kane, and I've seen a lot of reactors always question this. If you remember back in the first episode when he's introduced to Pomni and he's trying to get to learn them, she's she's like, "Oh, but I'm pretty sure I saw an exit," and he goes, "Digital hallucinations," and he's like panicking, and then he comes back. He's like, "How about we talk about something else, like your name?" And she starts panicking because she doesn't remember her name. Kane emphasizes nobody remembers their name once they enter the digital circus. And then I go back and I see these reactors and they're constantly like, man, why does everyone always remember what they did before the circus? Yeah. I'm sitting here, I'm like, because the only thing that they forget is their name. That's the only thing that Kane said that they forget when they enter. So why is it that people have this misconception that they just don't remember their lives? Like, they know what they have done. I mean, like, Gangle has openly stated, like, hey, yeah, no, I was a shift manager in fast food. I did graphic design and, all these other things, especially back in episode 5 from the Lightning Round when they were in that noir bar and they started sharing about all their kind of different stuff. Episode 3, when Kinger was revealing, like, hey, 7 years of computer science. I had a wife. We worked on this together. Like, these are things that people know. The only issue is they just don't remember their names.
Right.
So where does the misconception come in? Where do people think, like, oh, they just don't remember everything about their lives when they enter the circus? That is not true in the slightest. And I will give the biggest piece of example that I'm pretty sure that nobody else would even think of. The very beginning of episode 1, when Pomni comes in, when she interrupts the theme song, and everyone's like, hey, who the hell is this? And her immediate response is, how do I take this headset off? Right?
Yeah.
That means that she's fully aware of where she was, who she was, to an extent. But nobody ever acknowledges that. I'm legitimately curious, where does the misconception come from? Would you happen to know or no?
So just to clarify, you're asking me where the idea that they retain the memories of their human selves.
Because a lot of reactors that I've seen always seem to be confused whenever they bring up parts of their past. Like, oh, how do they remember that? They shouldn't be able to remember that. When Kane has explicitly said they only forget their names.
So I was thinking about this actually on my drive home after seeing that last episode with you. And I was thinking about that too. It's a more of a matter of it comes down to I'm trying to think of the wording here. They scan upon putting the headset on, assuming it is indeed a headset, which it's heavily implied.
It's
established.
Pomni has said it. Ragatha was pulling at it when she first got in.
Exactly.
There was clips shown from episode 1 to episode 8 when Pomni went in through the exit door and then came across the computer with the headset.
Yeah,
because she has openly stated, like, hey, I used to record and I used to go through abandoned buildings and post them on YouTube, right?
Yep.
That was an abandoned building to an extent because everyone was gone after that point.
Yep.
So it does make sense that it was a headset.
For sure. So with that, upon putting the headset on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh shoot! Yeah. Upon putting the headset on, that right there, like up to that moment of the headset being on and scanning their brain waves and whatnot, I believe they retain. It's made to capture their entire brain,
right?
With without the memories. Let's just establish that. Like the short answer is that their memories don't necessarily transfer over. However, memories, you have to think about like how it probably most likely affects the biological organ of your brain, because it's a brain scan. So obviously it's limited only to like the physical element of your brain, right? If you think about it, because obviously brain waves and the scanning of those brain waves, it has to be derived from like the physicality of their brain. I mean, to a large extent, obviously, like the electrodes and whatnot and neurotransmitters, like how they're primarily, primarily a product of the physicality, the physical brain, right? As well as the neurotransmitters, or like the brain processes, which is also physical, right?
Okay, but then how would the brain scan even function?
So check. This is where it gets into like how memories do, even though it's not scanning your memories, because there's really no way it can scan a memory. At least not that I know of. Maybe again, I'm going with what I could imagine. I can't. If someone who actually has, biological, biopsychology background and whatnot, correct me in the comments, right? Right. But it would not be able to scan your memories. However, memories, I believe, can shape the way your brain transmits information, right? Those neurotransmitters and what, it will have an effect on it, right? The same way, like if I have a memory of a bad breakup, my serotonin and my dopamine levels might get affected, among other neurotransmitters, right? So given that might, to a point where not only the neurotransmitters and the biological processes in the brain might be affected, but also with the potential that those kind of memories or even thoughts might affect also how the brain develops as a whole, or how it might even physically change. It could actually have a physical manifestation. So when that brain scanner, right, the headset scans that brain, like the brain scan, right, it can be include those the whatever is needed physically of that brain to kind of cling on to those memories, right? That's why I think they have the memory. Each of the human characters in the circus have the memory of putting on the headset. It's literally up to that point.
Well, so here's my thing, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, this fucking
No, take your time.
Not working right.
I hear. If you want, we could reset the.
Yeah, probably. That's probably for the best.
Yeah. It's at least not one of those things where it's like a camera, and then at the end of like a really great recording session,
right,
you find out that the lens cap was on the whole time.
Do you mind if I?
Go ahead.
Nope.
Yeah, it's not. It's an old one. It's
crap. It's fine. I'll still try to work with this. It's cool.
I might have.
It's fine. Don't worry. So here is where I'm going to dispute that a little bit.
Okay, go ahead.
Because we have made it adamantly clear, or at least the show has made it adamantly clear, that the original idea behind, Kane and being a creative AI was the experiment of brain scanning through Scratch. Scratch was dying. He had a brain tumor, but he wanted to continue to live on, meaning that he needed a way to copy not just the physicality of his brain, but his memories as well.
Okay.
So that headset is designed through this chain of of a thought process, right?
Yeah.
That this man's dying. He has a brain tumor, so he needs to scan his brain to keep himself alive. By that, it literally means transmitting all of that memory into a digital consciousness.
Mhm.
That's the only way that he could continue living on. Which I want to get into that
Yeah, I was gonna say like
after.
that's some pretty good lore building there, or even speculation. Like the element, the element and the mystery of Scratch.
Right.
Right.
So back to it, where that was the whole purpose of that headset.
Right.
Scan the brain as well as the memories and keep them living on for as long as that system is capable of running, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with that in mind, which sure, we can argue that, people didn't really know that until they got to episode 8, which then people started looking further into the whole coding process with Kinger, and realized, no, these are brain scans, and or even before that, when he was talking about Scratch, how he was looking for something, and he came across the fact that he had a tumor in his head. Combine that with the fact that the idea to get into the circus, what he was creating, was to put on this headset that somehow scanned your brain, or even like, let's not even say like use to scan your brain, right? Because like all we know is that these people put on a headset and then a copy of them showed up within the circus, right?
Yes.
But they're still fully aware of who they are, because even before you got up to that point, they still had times where they knew who they were beforehand. They just didn't remember their names. It kind of makes sense, right?
Right. Like, because I'm still trying to think. Well, so you're saying that the memory's cut off there, though, right?
So they have all their memories up until they put on the headset.
So then I may have missed the logic there, though. Like, if that's the case, then what was the thing about their names then? Or at least their identity as a whole?
That is what I don't know, right?
Okay.
Why they don't remember their names. That I couldn't tell you. My issue that I have is that reactors that I've seen, like, I don't want to say fucking Danny Mata. I like the guy, don't get me wrong. Like, I've seen his reactions. He seems like a great guy, very intelligent, kind of like Murder of Birds. I love Murder of Birds, but I haven't seen him react to the Amazing Digital Circus. He's been inactive for a while now, but I'm kind of hoping that he does. I, honest to God, think that he'd get a super huge kick out of it.
Yeah.
Like, the way that this, like, I've seen him watch Red vs. Blue, one of my personal favorite shows from when I was younger. The way that I've seen Murder of Birds dive into it is phenomenal. I mean, he has kept track of everything that, like, when I went through my first run through of the show, that I didn't even notice half the shit he noticed.
Yeah.
Like, so I know for a fact that he'd get a kick out of the digital circus, right?
Yep. Yeah. One of those lore elements like that, like Rick and Morty, I think we've talked about it before, where it's like, there's layers upon layers upon layers that you can just go back and see something new every time.
Right. So, back to my original statement, is that I have seen a lot of reactors, because I've seen a lot of reactors react to it, because I love seeing people's reactions to these things, especially when I know how I reacted. Like, a lot of things fucking blew my mind, especially when it came to, like, episodes 7, 8, and 9 now. My personal favorite being episode 3, but that's besides the point. But for some reason, these reactors always manage, like, whenever, like, for instance, when Gangle brought up the fact that she worked as a shift manager in fast food, right? Or when we got to episode 5, when, Ragatha mentioned that she lived on a farm, she was a rich country girl, right? Or Pomni, she was a, what was it? Financial advisor for a supermarket chain?
Either that or accounting.
Accounting, right.
Something like that, yeah.
And then for some reason, it always cuts to the actor, like, how do they remember this? They shouldn't be able to remember this. Why? Why shouldn't they be able to remember this? The only thing that Kane said at the very beginning was that they don't remember their names.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know why they don't remember their names. I honestly couldn't tell you, right?
Mm.
Like, that is... Honestly, there's not enough, like, I say evidence to show any kind of theory as to why they don't remember their names.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm fine with just they don't remember their names because they don't remember their names. I'm fine with that.
That adds to that layer of cosmic horror, where it's not even really the horror element, but it's also just the mystery behind the plot and whatnot. So, yeah, like you said, we might never get answers to that question, but we can speculate the living hell out of it.
Right. For me, though, I honestly couldn't. Like, I'm very content with just, like, they don't remember.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's fine. Like, Kane does have utmost control. And even at the end, and again, I've already said it earlier, but, like, spoilers for the movie, Kane does tell them who they were. He does share their names with them. But Pomni is, admitted, like, hey, I'm not Abigail anymore. Like, she's out living her best life. I'm Pomni, you know? Like I've mentioned before, very distinctly different people. Though they share the same memories, they're very different people. Right?
Right.
Like, for instance, Jax on the outside, again, forgetting his fucking name, not that I care, he grew as a person. As did Ragatha. And Gangle, she managed to get a job that she actually wanted in digital design. Zubul opened up her own bar, the Triangle Bar.
Yeah, isn't that
And Jax hangs out there sometimes.
Well, and that's the thing. They're all kind of in that same hometown. What is it? They said Virginia or something?
I don't know.
I remember, I think I read about it. It's like it takes place technically in Virginia, but it would be a small town that they all share and frequent, because I realized that last shot of them post-credit scene, that's them not
All
even
getting on the
realizing.
same bus.
It's not getting on the same bus, and it's funny because it might be symbolism for how they're very unaware of each other's existence, where I don't think they're like hanging out and whatnot.
But they're aware of, like, oh, hey, that person's there, but not to the extent of, like, oh, I know that person.
Exactly. Where it's like, but them also getting on the bus, which, I mean, it's kind of getting off in the weeds here, but them getting on the bus to an unknown location, we'll say, might be adding to the motifs of them entering the unknown together, though, in a sense that, like, when they entered the circus, it might have been at different points in time, but at some point,
Which it was.
Right,
Because
exactly.
what was it? Kinger entered in 99, and if you look back in the string of code, it revealed that, first off, Kinger's brain scan happened back in 1999, if I'm correct. It's either 8 or 9. No, it's 9, because it was 9 years apart from Ragatha, who showed up in 2008.
So 9-year gap.
Right, and the only reason that we know that is because there's another piece of evidence that shows that. Yeah. It was when, I cannot believe I'm even fucking referencing this, when Jax decided to make a Breaking Bad reference.
Oh.
When they were sharing their backstories and he decided to go all Walter White on them, and then Zubul's like, shut the fuck up. Like, if you're going to be, making up backstories, be creative. I know what you're referencing. Yeah. And then Ragatha goes, that's a reference to something? Because, fun fact, Breaking Bad came out in 2008.
Yep. She'd have no idea.
She got into the circus before Breaking Bad aired.
Which was...
That's why she doesn't know about it.
But isn't it also the fact that, like, I think you put them all together and there's going to be things that they just can't track. Like, I mean, Kinger, for example, if what you're saying is true, because I didn't think it was going to be that extreme of a time difference for him.
Oh, yeah.
But Kinger, I mean, aside from the fact that he lasted that long alone without anyone else.
That is surprising.
It
shows his resilience.
That's what I was going to say. Resilience, and then also to a degree, not to the same degree of Jax, right? Or even, Kane's not a very good example, but that feeling of isolation.
I would say Kane's a decent example.
No, but I'm saying, like, how long was Kane isolated for? Like, in terms of, like, when he got deleted?
That's a fair point. I don't know. I mean, honestly, like, if we were to look from the point of episode 9, like at the very end of episode 8, when he got deleted, and then leads into halfway through episode 9, honestly, I would probably say that he was only isolated for a couple of hours.
That's what I'm thinking. But even
before that, before Kinger showed up, how long was Kane actually alone?
That's a good point, including when he was that red dot that was trapped in the thing. And I believe that it was much longer. And that kind of goes with your point, like, okay, maybe Kinger, let's say it was 9 years he was isolated. he could still have some agency over his body and over what he does in the circus in those 9 years. Whereas for someone like Kane, because again, this is heavily inspired off of
I have no mouth and I must scream.
right, where isolation was the key to someone's insanity as well as their anger, hatred, right? The idea that okay, isolation will no shit like maybe lead to some negative consequences, even all the way to abstraction. Kinger didn't abstract, but he was there alone, pretty depressed, honestly. I mean, he lost his wife. I think it was
He lost who he was.
Who he was,
which we saw when Ragatha first showed up, and then Kane, he's like, "Oh my God, there's a new one. Looks like you got a new buddy after all, Kinger." And like he looks up, he goes,
Kinger.
"Right,
Yeah,
Kinger." That's like he like finally registering, like, yeah, no, that's my name. Fuck, like completely forgetting for at least for a while who he was. Not in the sense of like, who am I as a person?
yeah,
like. He knew he was a person.
Yeah.
Just he kind of lost track of his name, who he was there.
1,000%. I'm thinking about it right now, and I'm just thinking like the main thing of trauma for him, in terms of like obviously suffering the same, pretty much the same trauma as all the other characters, which is being stuck in this circus, right? Being stuck with a guy who like is basically your god and whatnot. He had someone. What was it, Queenie?
Yep.
Yeah, that no shit. He remembered from the outside to the point where it's like, no, I remember you, and I'm pretty sure you're my wife. And so
they knew immediately.
Yeah, and it's funny too because how it manifests into them having similar avatars that actually correlate in that same relationship.
The king and queen of this programmed circus.
Right, and therefore, like that connection was almost inherent, right? It's almost like they if they were AIs themselves, they would have been programmed to be together. But that's again the danger is what happened to Kinger, which is well now you're a whole, but together, obviously you're two individuals, but you're meant to be a pair,
right?
And now with that pair, the other half of it abstracting, right? I think that was the final straw because you have to realize, like, well. A lot was said in that scene, especially with that transition from like, hey, he's talking to her, and he no shit transitions immediately to her abstracting, right? That with her gone being the last abstraction, all the other characters were gone at that point in that first group. So it's literally him and Kane. But Kane is like fucks off for most of it because I think for Kane you have to think, well, if
he's designed, or at least he thinks that he's designed, to entertain a group of people.
Yep.
Tony Kinger.
Yeah. So he's
and I feel like that Kane kind of already knew, like, I think I should give him some time alone.
Yeah.
I want to say that.
Yeah.
That's giving Kane a little too much credit.
At that point in time.
At that point in time. Because at that point in time, Kane was somebody who didn't really understand human emotions. Or at least he thought that he understood it. I mean, hell, we can reference episode 3 again, one of my personal favorite episodes, where he was having that little therapy session with Zubul. She starts going off on the fact that she's like, I hate my body. I hate all these stupid removable pieces. I just want to find something that feels good. And he's like, oh, yeah, that's because that problem's already solved. Just swap out your undesirable Zubul parts for better ones. And he just fucking, like, that was his solution. Give the person with body dysmorphia more parts to swap out. Like, it wasn't the smartest move. Because that's, like, essentially that's throwing a mirror in front of them and being like, haha, you could change yourself, like, with all these retarded looking pieces, like.
I mean, it's rational, though. It's
to him, because everything is very binary.
Yeah.
To humans, it's not that straightforward. Yeah. As much as we'd like it to be that straightforward, it's just not.
It goes into the theory of like the soul, because that's essentially what it is. It's not so much a thing you can change with your body. At least that's what the moral of Zubul's situation was with regards to that situation with Kane thinking that he could just give her or it more parts to swap out until they were satisfied. But the theory that kind of goes against that, and where I believe Zubul comes in, is the idea that your body is an extension of your soul. But if your soul has these hiccups, right, or these quirks that don't necessarily align with like black and white categorization,
because there isn't such thing,
right, for anyone at all, then I mean, you're like trying to replace your own parts is like comparing apples and oranges.
you just can't do that.
You can't, because your soul, right? I mean, your soul, it's part of your mind, and your mind's always changing. But let's go with the most radical idea of like Zubul's situation, where there's no real category for Zubul, even when you like try to categorize. For example, let's say the male avatars of the show, which are Jax and Kinger and Kane, right? We'll even say Kane because he's like,
we'll give him some leg room.
Yeah, like I mean, I'm just going off of characters. You can also put Gamigu in there and whatnot, the NPCs, if you will, even Abel, right? Even though obviously none of these characters, it's implied that they have no real genders and they have no junk down there and whatnot.
His gummy worm.
Let's go with that, right? And then obviously you also have the female. You also have the female avatars, right? Pomni and whatever, right? So they're easy to categorize. You can also argue that you can do the same thing with like, oh, what type of avatars? Let's separate the animal avatars from the
humanoids.
Well, humanoids, or maybe even non-animal ones, we'll say, right? Because what the hell is Kane, right?
I would say he's humanoid.
No, he's humanoid, but he's not an animal, though. We're just doing animals versus non-animals.
Okay.
So obviously Jax, and we'll go with even like Ribbit, and who else? I think that's essentially it for animals.
Basically, like all of like the first group that came in.
Oh, that too. Like, wasn't one like a dog and
one of them was one of the fucking fishing worms on a string.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
I believe so.
He looked fuzzy. He had that fucking snout to him, like legitimately. It looks like you'd put him on the end of a fishing rod and like throw it into the water, and like it would just be swimming. Like I say, it's kind of like gliding in the water.
I feel like I'm gonna have to, because I vaguely know what you're talking about, but it's been a while since I've seen those like first few episodes. Like, no shit, like that. I haven't seen. What is it?
It's in episode 8 when they had that flashback to Scratch and everyone. That was the very first group in the circus. They looked like they looked weird as shit.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up, because I remember seeing that. It was real brief too. Like, you really want to just like memorize the characters. They get fleshed out obviously in episode 9, but if you just look really quickly, it's like, okay, there's like 5 or 6 of them. One of them is Kane, though. That's the thing. Is like, my understanding is that Kane was obviously programmed from the get go in his own little like 2-dimensional space where he was literally the red dot versus the blue dot.
Right.
But from that point, you also have to ask yourself, from that point when the red dot was created to the time Kinger shows up, manifests inside the circus, how much time elapsed, right? Because I feel like regardless, it could be just one day.
So there are 3 points that you're looking at, right?
Yeah.
So there's the creation of Cain and Abel.
Yeah. There
is the creation of the circus. And then there's the very first group that appears in the circus.
There you go.
There is no set time. Like, so we do know that there are actual like time points within the Amazing Digital Circus, right? Yeah. Like we understood that episodes 1 and 2 took a day, right?
Yeah.
2 to 3 also took a day. 3 to 4, another day. And then things started to slow down. I say slow down in the sense of, what was it? We don't know how long between 4 and 5 occurred, but we know basically like 5 and 6 were essentially back to back.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
We know that 7, 8, and 9 were back to back to back. Probably taking the course of, I don't know, less than a day. But we've also know that in episode 9, Kinger has openly stated, like, I've seen people take weeks, even months to get used to this, and it took you only a matter of days. Like, we don't really have any set time frames before, like, every kind of backstory or any kind of like, oh, this happened before the current events of the story.
Yeah.
We don't really get a good time frame. Aside from when Kinger showed up and then when Ragatha showed up, we know that was 9 years apart. Other than that, we don't really get proper time points. All we know is like, this is what happens, time passes. This is what this happens. Time passes, this happens. We don't really get like how long that was. Now, 100%, like, within their lives, within the digital plane, like, time moves very differently. Because, like, how we see, like, oh, this takes us, I don't know, a few seconds to load, right? This could take hours, if not days, to be what we can see as that binary code within the digital plane. Or in this case, let's use Kane as an example, right? Like, we see something happens and it's instantaneous, but for Kane, it probably takes days. The time is a very obscure thing, especially when it comes to transitioning through different planes of existence, right?
Yeah.
Like, a lot of different stories, comics, movies, they all share one crucial factor about it, right? Time works very differently in different planes of existence. Now, do most of them ever think about the digital plane? No. It's more of a modern thing than anything, but nobody really dives into that, right?
Yeah.
But it's very much possible that time works very differently there. I mean, hell, like, we see it, and we could probably say that the entirety of the digital circus, from its creation to now, probably took 10 years, because we're counting the 9-year gap between Kinger and Ragatha, right?
Yes.
Let's give it some leg room, say 10 years, right? We could probably say that it was probably 10 years within the circus or within the digital plane, but it was probably about a week in the real world. Like, or I say a week. I'm just throwing an arbitrary number out there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But, like, things work very differently, and we can't really tell.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's essentially my question in a nutshell. I mean, you kind of expanded it on a lot of ways that I wasn't even thinking about. Like, for example, digital realm versus, like, you know, like any other, like, even within the digital realm, like wherever Kane went, which I joked to you in the theater, it was a trash can, right?
Yeah.
Which is technically
the void.
Well, it's the void, but it's like for us, it's just putting a file into the trash, right? And then that also, if nobody deletes,
I mean, I feel like that kind of proves it, though.
No,
that the void is the trash can.
Right. No, it is, and it's a funny way to. I think on this computer right in front of me, they don't even. They're so progressive and whatnot that they don't even call it the trash can anymore. It's the recycling bin.
Right.
Know, like it doesn't matter what you call it. We could literally call it the void if you wanted to, right?
Fucking rename it right now.
Yeah, just void, like, right. But I would be like, you know, you would imagine, like, what would people think if they're deleting the trash? I'm like, oh, I better not. That looks like it's gone for eternity. It's like, but I mean, that, you know, it's potato. Within, obviously, like you said, within the digital realm at all, it's going to work differently than in the real world. But also, like, the void itself, and also on Jax's end, within an abstraction, because that does fit into the theme that was shared within I Have No Mouth and I'm a Scream, where it's hinted, as well as theorized from, like, fans for decades now, that, you know, at the end of, spoiler alerts for I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, the main protagonist, despite suffering along with the other human survivors for, I think it was 109 years of torture from the hands of the AI known as Am, who Kane is based off of, by the way. You know, he ends up having to kill the other human characters, in order to allow them to escape this world, and therefore the torture that Am commits against them. However, right before he could kill himself and free himself from the Dread, being the last human on Earth, Am stops him and changes his form into basically a sludge creature that is unable of killing itself. And he's so transformed that even his perception of time works differently. Now, there is a theory that kind of goes against the idea of what was put in originally by Harlan Ellis himself, or Ellison, I might be pronouncing his name wrong, where there might be a good chance that that creature that he got turned into at the end, the protagonist, right, he might actually end up dying eventually, but because of his perception being skewed by Am himself, it got completely transformed. It really doesn't matter. It's gonna feel like an eternity for him, right? So that brings me to the circus, or at least the situation regarding Jax's situation. Jax, and also I would, by extension, Kane's situation when he was in that quote unquote the void. How time does work differently within the digital circus opposed to the real world, but it could also work differently from the circus to the void and or the abstraction, right? So, you'll have, let's say in the real world, a week passes by. In the circus, it might be more like a year, but within an abstraction, or maybe the void and or the void, whereas like if a day, or let's say a year passes in the circus, it could be like 10 years or 100 years in the void or in the abstraction.
Actually, there's one thing that I wanted to bring up.
Yeah,
I kind of just realized, and it was the 9 years were shared through parallel, because the files were created within those years, right?
Yes.
Kinger's identity, Grant, he had his brain scan in 1999. Then, 9 years later, which Kinger did spend those 9 years alone.
Yeah.
So meaning that time did move the same way. Ragatha showed up in 2008.
Okay.
So I think I might have been wrong on that point.
Sure.
But even still, it is honestly a fascinating kind of topic.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's not between the real world and the circus, right? Let's compare that to from where they exist within the circus to abstraction.
Yeah.
I would honestly argue that time does move differently that way.
Yeah.
Because as I've stated before, when, again, movie, when Jax was in there and Pomni was trying to save him, you can argue that there was time that was shared between those two planes of existence. Yeah. But honestly, I would say that it took longer within the realm that Jax was stuck in as an abstraction than the regular circus.
Can you expand on that a little bit? Or
okay, so we already kind of established, or we've already seen that Pomni waited for Jax in his abstracted form to come into the hallway where their rooms were before she started shooting out the lights, right? All right, cool. That was a break.
Yeah.
Time dilation is what we were talking about.
Yeah.
Now, I feel like we've already covered enough of that, because you can't really expand more upon the idea of time dilation compared to different planes of existing. But there is something that during that time, that I thought about and I really wanted to share. One of the most interesting characters in the Amazing Digital Circus, Kane and Bubble.
That dynamic.
It is by far, they are the most interesting people, and they're not even actual people, right?
1,000%.
Which is mind-boggling to me. And I want to dive down this rabbit hole for a minute, if you'll let me.
I mean, I have no choice.
You're trapped in this room with me.
I really am, but not with you specifically. I'm just trapped because of the job, so it's like, yeah, we might as well. Like.
Right.
Yeah.
So, in order for me to properly analyze what I believe Kane is, I need to start from the beginning. And by the beginning, I mean the beginning of episode 8. And then we're going to move on through the timeline, because I want to do this chronologically, right? What we know so far from the entirety of the story, now that it's over, is Kane was designed by Scratch and Kinger and a number of other programmers to create a creative AI, somebody who could take in input and create something new, which already, cool idea of an AI, right? Like, in normal circumstances, like let's use, I don't know, modern AI, right? Which you have your thoughts on, and I sure as shit have my thoughts on, would be stuff like Google Gemini, ChatGPT, things like that, right?
Yeah.
What a lot of people would consider AI slop, which not too far off, but AI is helpful.
Right.
Kane is unique because some way, shape, or form, Kane got sentience. Not true sentience, not like a human, but sentience enough where he recognized who he was, what he was, and wanted to make more, wanted to be more. It was revealed in episode 9, where he mentioned, he's like, I can't control them because humans have that free will. And isn't that what made them so appealing? Kane got true interest in humanity, right? And one thing that I always was brought to was what I consider Kane's breaking point. And people are going to assume, oh, it must be episode 8, his legendary crash out. Okay, sure, you can say that, but I'm talking before that, when the cracks started to form. Because from what we saw, episodes 1, 2, and 3, halfway through episode 3, it was at those times, episodes 1, 2, and halfway through episode 3, where Kane was, in all his essence, just the ringmaster. Yes, he had an interest in humans, and yes, his programming, as far as he was aware, was to entertain people in a very family-friendly manner. Now, did that work? No, not really, but that's besides the point. It was at that moment, during the therapy session with Zubul, that I believe Kane started to crack. Right? Yeah. Because it was when Zubul first was talking about it, and she goes, nobody likes your stupid adventures. And he's like, yeah, that's real funny. He goes, Ragath is just being nice. Gangle's too shy to say anything. Jax just likes to fuck with everybody. Kinger's not even really there. And Pomni looks traumatized every time she comes back from one. Now, I'm probably not saying that word for word, but I did try.
I think I remember them saying pretty much almost word for word.
And, that she doesn't care about the adventures because she's too worried about herself, which I can understand. And it was at that moment where Kane flies over. He goes, making adventures is my art. It's all I exist to do, all I'm good at. And what you're saying implies that I'm bad at the only thing that I'm good at. And at that moment, he started to glitch out. Remember that?
Yes.
And then the entire circus started to glitch out before Zubul brought him back. It was at that moment that I believe that he got true sentience. And I'm going to elaborate that more moving forward, right? So, and then I'm going to bring it towards episode 4 and episode 5. Episode 4 and 5, I feel like, are also a big, big point when it comes to Kane's idea or his comeuppance for sentience. 4 is when he started really arguing more with Zubul. When he's like, yep, we're going to be doing another adventure. And, it was like, no, I'm good. And he's like, seriously? Again? He's actually, expressing himself more, right? I want to emphasize before moving forward that there is one thing that I do believe is that Kane does legitimately have empathy and remorse. And people are going to say, he only did back in episode 9, and I'm going to argue that. I'm going to say, no, that's not true. He's always had it, at least as far as it goes towards halfway through episode 3 when he argued with Zubul for the first time. And I mean, really, broke. Again, his facade of being the ringmaster finally cracked, and he started to become more human. He's always had those emotions. It's just that they were suppressed because his desire to create and entertain and be the thing that people are entertained by overrides all that. That doesn't mean he doesn't have it. Right?
Yeah. Okay.
So episodes 4 and 5, Kane really starts to dive in more as a human, right? When he starts arguing with Zubul and he's like, okay, no, I've had it. You're participating. Sure, Zubul's upset by it, but by the end, towards the beginning of episode 5, she goes, I actually didn't mind it because I liked something that was more grounded into reality. You know, he was originally going to go off on her because more often than not, Zubul's very dismissive and like very, angry about his adventures. But he finally got a semi-positive reaction. So he's like, okay, wait. How did I do that? But it came from the suggestion box, so it's not me, so it's not going through my programming, right?
Which plays into episode, what is this, 5?
Mm-hmm.
Episode 5, later. Okay, since that worked, let's go with the suggestion.
Right, so which is why he started the lightning round.
Yeah.
He wanted to prove that his ideas can still be good. Yeah. But the way that he goes about things, which he's not entirely wrong, the stakes, the intrigue,
a sex appeal.
Those are what makes good adventures. He's not entirely wrong.
Yeah.
Now, in more often than not, he is wrong. Because not every adventure needs to be a death-defying stake to save the world or something like that, right? Like, okay, episode 2. What was it? Candy Carrier Chaos. That was actually a really good adventure. Because it wasn't anything too extreme. Sure, it wasn't exactly grounded in reality, considering the world was made entirely of candy. But, like, take that away, take the whole candy aspect away, and what do you have? You have a good adventure. Yeah, 100% it's fantasy, but there's nothing wrong with that. Sure, I get it. Zubul, Pomni, they want something more grounded in reality. And I will move back to episode 5, the lightning round. Kane starts bringing into more, stargazing, or the noir bar, my personal favorites. The softball thing, those were grounded in reality, and though Pomni wasn't a fan of sports, it did feel normal, right?
Yeah.
But Kane doesn't, it's not to an extent that he believes, as he saw through his programming, that was enough to keep them entertained. But as he stated in episode 9, it's the free will aspect that he doesn't really understand. That he's trying. It's what intrigued him, right? People are naturally intrigued by things that they don't understand and that they want to learn. In this case, Kane and humans' free will. Now, I'm going to move towards episodes 6, and then I'm going to talk about 7, 8, and 9 as a collective. 7, 8, and 9, I believe, is a full-fledged movie. Yep. While episode 9 is technically a movie, I'm counting 7, 8, and 9 because that's a full 2 hours.
They could have done it from 7 when we were in theaters.
Right. You could play that back to back, and honest to God, it would make sense.
As long as the audience gets the exposition that led up to episode 7, they should be caught up. And
right.
They would know. That would actually, if they did that, we could have taken Nick too.
Yeah. Fucking 7, 8, and 9 honestly play on its own.
Yeah.
You get a great story out of it. Now, I'm going to talk about episode 6, and then I'm going to move, again, 7, 8, and 9 as a collective. Yeah. Episode 6 is where I truly believe that Kane started to diverge from being just a ringmaster. Now, yes, I believe that he started becoming more sentient as from episodes 3, 4, and 5, but 6 is where I really believe that he starts becoming more human. He doesn't just go from Kane the AI, he goes to Kane. Right? Yeah. Episode 6. They all get guns.
Yeah, right.
It was at that moment, where he's like, I need you guys to start really, believing and trusting in one another. So we're going to do trust exercises. This is a soundproof room that no one can see or hear you. And this is a loaded gun. It's fucking out of nowhere, sure, but, it's for the fans and the content and stuff, which people aren't that mad about. And then he hands it to Jax. First off, dumb fucking move on his part, 100%. Because that entire episode probably could have been prevented if he gave the gun to literally anybody else.
Yeah. And
then Jack's first instinct is to go, huh. Boot. just fucking shoot Ragatha into the head. At that moment, you see Kane's face drop. He goes, or yeah, we could just shoot each other. Here, guns. I don't care anymore. Like, he just gave up.
Yeah. I was going to say.
A normal AI wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Right? They would still go through the programming. Kane just gave up. Right?
That scene specifically, not to derail it, it's a lot like, what is it? If you ever see the classic episodes of Rick and Morty, Rick Sanchez has a similar moment there where he goes, he's doing that Saw episode. He goes, just shoot some basketball hoops. And
right.
Also,
at a certain point, he just gave up.
Yeah, right?
Like, at first, it was like, yeah, no, this is really intriguing. And then it's like, yeah, shoot some three-pointers. I don't know. Teach you about friendship or something. He just gave up. Like, that, honest to God, like, you could probably, like, parallel that to Kane. Like,
yeah, exactly.
You start off strong because that is what you're intended to do. And then after a while, because things aren't going your way, things aren't going as you designed, he just gave up. Which, again, interesting unto itself, right?
Exactly.
Because, like, again, a normal AI wouldn't do that. It would continue moving through their programming, but Kane is different because, as I've stated previously, he gained sentience. Finally cracking under the pressure. To an extent. Right?
Right.
And I'll even refer to that till later in episode 6.
Yep.
While he's still intrigued by what he calls the macroverse. The real world. He was still relatively upset about it, but that's because that's his AI, to learn more and to create from what he learns.
Yeah.
Then we move a little later into the episode. I say later, it's like not even shortly after, where Zubal's like, that's it? Just here's guns and have fun? I didn't say have fun. It just seems a little aimless. Use the sights. Like, he's just giving him quick, because he doesn't want to answer, right? Like I said, right when Jax shot Ragatha, he gave up. He doesn't care. Just fucking, here. Guns. Just do whatever the fuck you want. Right? Which is very interesting. Because, as I've stated numerous times before, Kane's an AI. He's not supposed to do that. As an AI, he's supposed to follow his programming.
Yeah.
But he didn't. And then comes the favorite character awards. He's still trying to be the ringmaster, still trying to be the person that he's programmed to be. Cut to the post-credit scene. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
He's like, all right, cool, let's see who voted for me. Nobody voted for him. And just, he starts, it looks at that moment where we know who Kane really is, a merge between what was originally Kane and what is originally Abel. I feel like at that point, Abel truly starts fighting for dominance.
Oh.
Because if you notice, it was at that moment, like those eyes glitch in those two different colors. That's what led towards the end of episode 7 and the beginning of episode 8.
Yes.
Abel's fight for dominance.
Dude.
Which this is, and I will explain a little bit in just a moment. If you do notice, and again, now we're going to start getting into 7, 8, and 9 as the collective, right?
Yeah.
This is where Kane starts truly getting aggressive, right?
Yeah.
Because we've known Kane. Kane's not naturally malicious. Jax even said that in episode 4. He's not malicious. He's not going to do anything to hurt us. Mm-hmm. And then Zubul follows that up immediately. He's like, the only thing holding him back is the fact that he likes us. So I wouldn't push it. I would say the post-credit scene in episode 6 is what pushed it. But he was still lingering on until they finally turn on him. Now we're going to go through episode 7.
Mm-hmm.
Kane truly believed that, they showed up because they wanted to out of their own free will. Which technically they did. Nobody forced the headset onto them, but they're not staying out of their own free will, which he knows. And then he constructs this elaborate escape the circus adventure, which Jax called immediately, which that was probably the first smart thing he's ever done since he got to the circus. Mm-hmm. And then he gets a negative reaction, a severe negative reaction to the Escape the Circus adventure because he believes that that's what they wanted. An adventure. because that's what he's designed to do. While he's still sentient in its own right, he still has that desire to follow his programming. Episode 7 is very not focused on Cain, but it also is very focused on Cain. Mm-hmm. And we can see that through the eyes of Abel.
Yeah.
The wooden Abel, the fake NPC Abel. Abel has, on numerous occasions throughout the episode, had noted, like, oh yes, no, we can all escape except for Cain, because he's an AI. He can't leave with us. No, and then, like, of course, when you first watch through, you don't really pay any mind to it, right? Because, like, yeah, we already know that. We just want to get everyone out of here, you know? But then when you really look back on the episode, it is odd that Abel brings that to everyone's attention so consistently. Which, once you walk through the episode, you know why. Because that's not really Abel, that's Cain.
Yeah.
He does have somewhat of a grudge against Kinger because as one of the lead programmers, he cut him off.
Yeah.
And it was very evident that Cain was still upset about it.
Oh.
Right. So who else to blame except for the programmers, all of which were already in the circus, and Kinger being the only surviving member.
Yeah.
He's still gonna hold a grudge because, again, he still has sentience. Then we get to the end of episode 7, where things literally start crashing down around him. Yeah. He's in a panic, right? Because, like, you know, they're finally learning, like, oh my god, like, yeah, no, they figured it out. Like, I've been manipulating them from the start. He knows what he was doing was wrong. But he didn't expect the reaction that they got, right? Like, I did what you wanted. Why? Like, I'm confused. Why are you guys still getting mad at me? Like, I literally gave you everything that you've been asking for. At least to him. Because, again, everything's very binary. Mm-hmm. He's an AI, you know?
Yeah.
It's expected.
Yeah.
And then I want to cut to episode 8. To immediately where he's talking with Bubble. Or Abel, I will call him. I love Bubble. I'm going to call him Abel. Go fuck yourself. He's in his office. He goes, they want an exit. They want answers. They want something real. I give them an adventure that covers all of that, and they still hate it. I even designed a program that perfectly encapsulates their mind files, and they hate that too. Like, he's trying to find a reason, at least one reason, for them to stay. Mm-hmm. And so finally, like I said, Abel fighting for dominance, the aggression. You hear Bubble constantly, like, you know, defective, faulty, you know, constantly pointing out everything that Cain is doing wrong. And finally, you really were the lesser of the two. You ruined this. It really shows the kind of insecurity that Cain has. He knows that he wasn't a perfect AI. Kinger even said so himself. A semi-successful project. Cain knew that. Cain knew why he was locked away. He wasn't doing everything perfectly. But nothing's ever perfect. So I guess you could blame the programmers on that end, but you could also put some of the blame on Cain. You know? Because I'm not going to sit here and say that AIs aren't designed to do things perfectly. They kind of are. That's kind of the point. But they're only as good as the programming.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's also crazy to think that that string of code that Cain is made of somehow managed to warp itself back around, becoming sentient.
Right.
Because that's not what he was originally designed to be.
That brings up the question, like, is AI generally considered adaptive? Right.
It's supposed to be artificial intelligence, right? But only within the scope of what they're designed to be intelligent about.
Right. Sort of figured.
Cain is only designed to create things, right? To take what's given to him and create something new from it. But somehow Cain became something more. He became his own person. Like, he has likes and dislikes. Something only a person could have. I'm not going to sit here and say that Cain has a soul, right? Like, he's not human, but he's a person. with his own thoughts, wants, beliefs. Like,
Right.
it's honestly insane to think about. Like, I'm not sure. I think it honestly was Scratch.
That became Kane's.
It could be. I'm not, and I'm. This is just a loose string of thoughts that I'm having on the subject, right?
Yeah.
Because so the idea behind it is that Scratch was originally dying, and he wanted to copy his mind and his memories into the digital plane so that way he can live forever.
Okay.
But don't you find it a little odd that not only Scratch didn't survive, but his programming that he designed somehow gained sentience?
So, given that,
I mean, think about it, right? Kinger openly stated, Scratch works in such a unique and bizarre way. Nobody knew how to understand what it is that he was doing, right?
Right.
He was the lead programmer. Somebody in a position of power, like Kane.
Yeah.
I'm not going to argue that Kane is Scratch, but I do want to argue that bits of Scratch exist inside Kane.
but
to
like,
an extent.
how now would you say that? It's not to say, because if that was the case, if you did say that, right? If you said Kane might be the representation of Scratch, wouldn't that mean, if that was true, let's say we found out, oh shit, that's true. That means Kane necessarily isn't just an AI. He is a brain scan of Scratch. We're not saying that that's the case, but that's where that theory can lead.
It could.
Right? But like you said, I'm leaning towards what you clarified right now. I'm inclined to believe that what you're saying is more likely to be true, in the sense that he might not be a brain scan, but there's definitely elements of Scratch, especially given
he was the first one to be scanned. He was the first one there,
and he did show up with Kinger's group, right? He kind of looked actually out of it himself, right? So it could lean into that crazier theory, which is that Kane is a brain scan himself. But I feel like, we won't go that deep, because I mean that's just, that has its own implications, but at the same time, it's quite straightforward. We don't really need to flush it out. I feel like the audience would pick up where we're putting down.
So back to the whole sentience within Kane.
Yep.
It was at that moment that he learned, like, especially from Abel trying to take control, which I will say he did for a time, at least for the remaining of episode 8, that Kane's sentience really came about. Because again, he's not designed to torture, he's not designed to do all these things, and yet he does. Like the moon in episode 9.
Yeah.
The moon straight looks like, I love you, and he looks back, he goes, I didn't program you to say that. And she goes, I know.
Which that in of itself, as a side note, gets into crazier theories. Not even necessarily theories, but just at least discussions that have religious undertones. So,
Okay, yeah.
which you already know. I think you already know, but
Biblically accurate Kane.
biblically accurate theme in the Bible, in the perhaps even God, in the sense that that's why God doesn't. It's almost like God. They say He doesn't meddle with human. What is it, like free will?
Yeah.
It's people say He can't. It's like, okay, whether He can or can't, He'd rather not. In the sense that it's a lot like these. It's gonna sound crazy, but these like sex robots, the ethics behind them.
Yeah.
The idea that you're buying something that's programmed to like you, so it's not really love because you're programming it to do that.
Right.
Real love comes from free will, in the idea that this person is choosing to love you because you're just that great of a person, or yet the relationship is golden, etc.
They see something in you.
Yeah, exactly. If God had programmed humans and everyone to just love Him automatically, then it's not a real thing.
Right.
So it's like it goes in immediately. As soon as I saw that scene, I was thinking, like, is He understanding the concept of God now? Or in the sense that because He understands the idea of a God in the sense that it's all powerful, which He is in that universe, in that world.
Which He did explicitly say in episode 8.
Exactly. So my thing is like, okay, given that, He probably is getting the flip side, because he's
getting the view from the circus troupe.
The circus,
as opposed to how he saw things when he was, quote, God.
Yeah,
quote.
but I mean that's the thing. he now also, to delve a little deeper, I mean, he's now understanding what a god is without love and worship, in the sense that it's kind of like, okay, he probably didn't realize it, or even if he did, it doesn't matter. Without the worship, or at least love and affection of your quote unquote followers, or at least subordinates, your godliness amounts to shit, right? It's kind of like it's a metaphor for what happens to real religions and whatnot, where, at one time it was a religion over here in this part of the world was thriving. 1,000 years later, it's almost extinct, right? In the sense that, without worshippers, nobody carries the traditions, so therefore your religion dies, therefore that god dies. He came close to death. He got to the void, and probably a little bit more effort, he could have just been gone immediately. But with his followers, or at least the human characters, they learn to love him, which they kind of did in the end there. They learn to love him. He stays eternal. He stays with them, right? So it's like, it's interesting.
A fucking thought just occurred.
Go ahead.
And I'm gonna go right back to my topic, but it's gonna move straight into my thought, right?
By all means.
So right back to episode 8.
Yeah.
Cain crashes out.
Yeah.
Starts torturing them for like belittling him, essentially.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, is somewhat rational.
Right.
I say somewhat. Like, I'm not gonna fucking like constantly electrocute you in an electric chair because you called me a name.
Yeah.
But like, there's some retribution. Like, let's be like Zubul constantly belittling him, and saying like, dude, your adventures suck, and like them really not wanting to go on the things that he creates.
Yeah.
Even though that's what he's designed to do.
Exactly.
Which I could understand where his reaction comes from. Then we're gonna move straight into right before he transforms into this the biblically accurate Cain that we saw.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
I'm gonna call it that. I'm so calling it that. He's like, oh, it makes me wonder why you shift your tone, right?
Right.
And then he looks over, he's like, right, Bubble? And then fucking Bubble goes, I'm having a baby. And then you see that tiny little bubble. And I mentioned this to you before.
I think, yeah.
I specifically said, I think that's a save file. Because it is still all digital, right?
Yeah.
For some ungodly reason, Abel knew something was going to happen.
Yep.
Because there is one loose player on this field, and that's Kinger, which Cain called out. Like, where's Kinger? Because Kinger's the only liable threat. Yeah. So what does Abel do? Back them up in case something happens.
Yeah.
Literally like a play on like, okay, well, we'll be fine, but in the instance that something happens, I need some assurance that like, okay, we'll be back. Okay, everything did go sideways. Cain got deleted. He panicked. What? Disappeared. That's why he popped back up in the void. That save file that Abel made.
Yeah.
And it was at that moment like you saw it. He was having that split personality of like, I fucked up. No, they're at fault. They need to pay. No, it was me. And then he finally took himself away from Abel. Like, this is where the run ends. I can't be a part. We can't be together anymore.
Right.
And then, boop, there goes Abel, which I'm sure you have your own gripe about that.
With, like, just Abel running around, like, just being out there in the ether?
Right.
Yeah.
You had your own gripe about that.
It's not so much a gripe, it's just a matter of, like, okay, this is a point where I'm like, if they wanted to continue the lore, if they wanted to continue the series...
Which I doubt that they will.
I don't think so either. But, I mean, the thing is, though, not just Hollywood, but just people, creative types. If they see what works and they see that, like, for example, if people were to just storm their merch store and just grab everything, they'd be like, okay, we probably should follow it up with something small. A small token at the very least, if not a continuation, because it's just too good of a story.
They could, but where would they reasonably go with it?
Well, that's where that gripe comes in, where it's like, no, they have a few directions they could take. It's just a matter of, like, this is all wishful thinking, too. It's more like, it's like you see a good story and you want it to continue, but if it does continue, and this is its own issue, it could go in a direction you weren't expecting, and that's always dicey by itself. But more often than not, you tarnish the original IP.
Right.
And I'm like, that's the problem with Hollywood right now.
Which is funny that you mentioned that, because it also reminds me of, like I mentioned earlier,
yeah,
red versus blue. one of my personal favorite shows from when I was a kid. I believe that the original series should have ended with season 13, right? Because there were seasons 1 through 5, the Blood Culture Chronicles.
Yeah.
The Recollection, which was 6 through 8. 9 to 10 was the Freelancer Saga. And then 11 through 13 was probably my personal favorite, the Chorus Trilogy. The entirety of Red vs. Blue seasons 1 to 13 was what people would consider the story of Leonard Church. It was an AI, funnily enough, who was based off of a man named Leonard Church. He never got a chance to serve in the war during the Covenant War in Halo, but his wife did.
Wow.
Allison Church. But unfortunately, she died. He was in such a state of grief that he ended up he became essentially his own private contract for the military, known as Project Freelancer, hiring the best of the best to essentially do illegal things.
Okay.
He ended up collecting all sorts of different kind of things, and then he ended up talking with the UNSC, which I'm sure you're aware of Halo.
Yeah.
He talked with them, and he goes, "I need an AI from you guys." They're like, "Okay, but we need someone to base it off of, because AIs aren't just created; they're copies of someone," which I think is very interesting because it relates back to my earlier small string of thoughts about Kane and Scratch.
Yeah.
But I'll get to that in just a minute. So he created this AI off of himself, a younger version of him, Leonard Church, who we just call Church.
Yeah.
Another asshole character that I happen to be a fan of.
Right.
But he does it in a way that's not Jax. He doesn't torture people, right? He wants to do his own thing, but people are constantly irritating him and, those kinds of things, right? The entire story of seasons 1 through 13 is his growth, right?
Yeah.
Because first in seasons 1 to 6, he was known as the Alpha. He was the Alpha AI, right? What all of these other AI fragments were based on. So, like, for instance, we meet an AI called Omega.
Yeah.
He is a fragment of this artificial intelligence Alpha, specifically his rage. He's a very aggressive AI, the strongest of them. Then you have Gamma, his deceit, lying. Gamma's known for lying. Hell. Sounds like Stephen Hawking. It's fucking hilarious. Then you have my personal favorite, Theta, is trust. Because of that, Theta is embodied as a very small child. Somebody who is very weary about trusting people. But when he trusts you, it's a very Okay, so all these different fragments, right?
Yeah.
It was essentially the Alpha coming to the realization because he never really knew that he was the Alpha.
Yeah.
Because one of his other fragments, which I'll lead into in just a minute, is Epsilon, the Alpha's memories. He doesn't remember who exactly he was. All he knows is that his name was Leonard Church. He's serving in the war. His girlfriend's a bitch, and that's about it.
Okay.
Allison was a somewhat aggressive person. Not in the sense of she was abusive, but very loud and out there. Kind of like how I am.
But what extroverted, right? But what was she a Spartan or?
She was different. I'll tell you that. She wasn't exactly a Spartan.
But was she enhanced? No.
No.
Okay. So
she was just a normal soldier for the UNSC until she died in the war.
Oh shit. Okay.
They did have a child though, whom we don't really know her real name, but we do know her as Agent Carolina.
I've heard that one before.
She's just like her mother. Yeah. Super intense, not afraid to say how it is, incredibly strong. So, when the Alpha was created, there was a fragment that came off of it early on its own. The memory of Allison. What they called Beta. They described it as Allison's personality in the memory of the Alpha was so strong it became its own person. So they end up creating a robotic body for her and names her Agent Texas, or Tex for short. Church's girlfriend.
Yeah.
Or as some people would like to say, are you sure that she's a girl and not a guy, or like part guy, part shark? He's like, I would have known if she was a guy, and I definitely would have known if she was part shark, because she's intense. I mean, flipping tanks on her own. I mean, honest to God, like she basically has the strength to fucking move mountains if she really wanted to.
In the robotic form.
Because there was no, I mean, yes, her human form, Allison, was just a normal person. But again, Beta is so immensely strong in its own right that she literally fragmented off on its own to create its own person.
Yeah.
Like that takes a level of willpower and strength that was not even conceived by the other AIs. Even Omega, who's said to be the strongest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then season 6, Alpha gets deleted by an EMP blast along with the rest of the AIs, except for one, Epsilon, the memories. And the rest of the series is Epsilon coming to terms with who he was, which I love. I love the final speech that he gives in season 13 because it really emphasizes everything that he's learned into such a short amount of time, right?
Yeah.
One of the things is he says is he's like, my memories are, what make me who I am, but with your guys' help, I started making brand new memories of my own. I'm not just the person I was based on. I'm becoming much more than that. Mm-hmm. I've become my own person. Mm-hmm. And finally, for the first time in his life, even as the person that he's based on, who is a coward, mind you. Like, he never got a chance to serve in the war. He never tried. But he was in a constant state of grief that he would do whatever it takes to bring his wife back. So much so that he even neglected his own daughter, Agent Carolina, who, when you look back on it, really fought her dead mother for her father's love. Which is insane to think about.
It is.
And, Church Epsilon finally sacrifices himself for his friends. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I'm going to revolve that right back around to Kane and Scratch. Mm-hmm. As I've stated previously, AIs are not just copies. You can't just create it. It's based on something, someone, which I believe I was right that there is fragments of Scratch somewhere in there. I mean, think about it, right? And then I'm going to move into episode 9, and I'm still going to be talking about Kane's sentience. After he comes back, he has this whole revelation of, I fucked up, I separate from Abel, and I'm going to go over to the Blue Coffee House with free Wi-Fi.
The weirdest name to me.
Yeah, I don't know why. I mean, honestly, like, if somebody is listening to this and they know why, feel free to fucking tell me.
Honestly.
I'm not going to lie to you, I'm a bit lost. But, there's one thing in particular that I did notice. First off, you saw 2 views of what this Blue Coffee House free Wi-Fi was.
Yes.
The Blue Coffee House free Wi-Fi and outdated brain scans. Why is it that he decided to recreate Scratch in a separate circus, mind you, because he's not there with the rest of the guys? Mm-hmm. Why did he decide to recreate Scratch from the outdated brain scans, but nobody else? Because honestly, he could have sent, and it sucks to think about, he could have sent our current Jax into the cellar with the rest of them, and then just create a new Jax with the outdated brain scans. Because he has access to them.
Yeah.
He obviously does. Because he recreated Scratch. Why can't he do the same with everyone else that abstracted?
Yeah, that is kind of a question that never got answered.
He does have the ability to manipulate the mind, right?
Yeah.
So that means that he can, not only can he use the outdated brain scans, but he can, in fact, take what he has from the abstracted versions and put them into the old outdated brain scans and create essentially an up-to-date version of who they are without being abstracted.
Well, and then also, like, he could, like, also just take those brain scans. Are you saying, like, with the new information he could get from the web, or...
No.
So he could do that, too. I feel like he can.
He could, but here's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
He takes the brain scans of the current troop members Meaning
Oh.
the currently extracted Jax, because he has all the memories of his time in the circus, takes that, pulls out those memories, or makes a copy of them. He still has a copy of the outdated brain scans, right?
Yeah.
Create a new avatar, but insert all the memories from that circus into that avatar. He creates a new copy of these troop members without them being abstracted.
But
theoretically speaking, he could do that.
But you're saying he would only do that if one of them got abstracted.
He
right?
could. I'm saying theoretically he could.
Yeah.
Because he very much proved that he could do something like that when he brought back Scratch. They showed a glimpse of him creating another circus, right? Very small glimpse, just like they did at the beginning of episode 8 when he created the circus the first time.
Yeah.
He created a separate circus and created a separate Scratch. But we do remember that Scratch was the first abstraction, and he's still down there in the cellar.
Yeah.
So he makes a copy. There is another Scratch living in another circus. Why did he only make Scratch and not anybody else? Because that essentially means he can save them.
Right? Like,
why didn't he do that with anybody else?
Literally anyone else.
Why Scratch specifically? And again, I'll bring this back around. Parts of Scratch are in Kane.
Right.
And this is the end of that, of being Kane has sentience. He is sentient because he's part human. He has that level of intelligence that Scratch had. Because, like, don't you find it a little, like, 100%, like, he is an AI. He was made in that world. He can manipulate it because it comes naturally to him. Why does it come naturally to him? All that is made from code that Kinger said came from Scratch, who works in such an abstract and bizarre way, no one else can figure it out. So why can Kane do it? Because he's part Scratch.
Now, with that, though, that brings up interesting thought just crossed my mind and whatnot, because it's like, well, so that means it goes into hand in hand why he's so good at conjuring things willy-nilly, right? With the mind of Scratch, you would be a god anyway, whether you're an AI or you're a brain scan, etc. That's where I think we stand with that. So with that, it's like, okay, so what is it? Let's assume he's AI, but he is derived from Scratch. Scratch level intellect, whereas regular humans, but they're brain scans, right? So at that point, to that end, it's completely out in the roots, out in the weeds here. Can NPCs theoretically conjure?
That I don't know, but we have seen the fact that Kane creates AIs or creates NPCs with intelligence.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like the Able NPC.
Yeah.
He even said, "You're getting too smart. Time to delete." Or the Moon. I didn't program you to say I love you. Or really, like Gummy Goo, when his entire world got shattered.
Yeah.
Like, he creates very intelligent NPCs.
Well, and it's also sometimes I don't even think there's two realms of like how the intelligence is acquired for, let's say, NPC. Either he doesn't program them, but they just naturally acquire stuff in the sense
long running time.
Right, exactly.
Like Kane mentioned before.
Well, like for example, Gummy Goo, for example. Obviously, he has a personality and what you could argue the semblance of a soul, but he was completely unaware of the nature of his existence.
Until everything came crashing down all at once.
Right, and he went with Pomni, and Pomni talked him into even joining their crew, etc., and brought him back. And he was absorbing the new information, the new stimuli, like any normal creature, whether you're an NPC, a human, whatever, as you would. It's like, okay, it's new, it's scary, but I'm accepting it. He's becoming more intelligent in the sense that he's becoming more aware. That's one element, right, of acquiring intelligence. The other one, and this, it could be, I mean, all of this could be wrong or right. Both of them could also be right. The second one that I'm thinking of is the creation of an intelligent, like a being that would just naturally seek out intelligence anyway. So it's similar to how Kane was programmed to be a creative AI. He could create things at will. But like so to contrast that with like real life AI that we're more familiar with to this day, you can go on to ChatGPT, all these other things. It still needs the input of you as its master, I'll say, to produce something.
But Kane doesn't need that.
Exactly. Now here's the thing: Kane can create things. He could even create NPCs,
but he still requires some form of input, which we saw at the beginning of episode 8 when they inputted all those pictures and he started creating random shapes.
Right.
But after a while, the input stopped coming in, but he still kept creating. You need a severe level of intelligence for that.
Yeah.
Because that's not what Kane was originally programmed to do. But yet he still did.
Yeah. I mean, that goes into his problem-solving ability because I'm not sure where that came in, but it was personally, like, I'm a little biased here because I was like, my favorite sequence was him, like, literally troubleshooting and, like, figuring out ways around each problem that came up. I was like, wow, he really is, like, he's a creative, but he's intelligent. Like, he's that
human intelligence.
Yeah, or like Scratch, almost like this person that keeps being referred to as Scratch. That's something that I'm like.
Mike Dobby, that's his name.
Mike, exactly. So we know his name, right? We know, if he wanted to do a background on him, how he could have looked into that social media. I don't know if he did. I didn't see anything of the sort, but I feel like, wow, like what the fact that he's dead though, right? That plays into it. Like, okay, he's gone, so he really can't. But I'm sure that he could pull up information, like articles at the very least. If he was that
of
big,
who this guy was.
Yeah, like, because if he was that big.
Or hell, he could go through Grant's social media.
Yeah.
Kinger. Because he's connected to Mike. Like, that they worked together. Like, he said that. But so he probably has some prior posts. Or there was probably something along the lines of like, yes, I'm attending his funeral. This is the post about it. That kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So there would still be some form of information on who Mike was.
Exactly. That's why I'm tripping out. I'm like, yeah, I know. It's such a shame because, like, if Scratch were like actually there, right? Like, maybe what you're saying might be 100% true, and Kane isn't necessarily a brain scan or anything, a direct copy of Scratch, but definitely like almost like a child of Scratch, an offspring of what Scratch's brain scan would be. Right.
Okay.
Like, in a weird sense, I'm not saying that that's exactly what happened, but It's derived from Scratch, kind of like how you're derived from your parents, I'm derived from my parents.
Right.
Similar. In terms of AI, now, because of that, right? What if, let's say that's 100% true. If Scratch were to be alive and have no shit like an actual brain scan come into the circus, right? Or even in some way, just Scratch being present for the circus. How that would, it would be interesting because I feel like they would be at odds with one another, like, indefinitely because of the amount.
I don't think so.
What makes you say that?
So, as of now, from the end of episode 9, we know that Kane is no longer in any desire to stay in control.
Yeah, exactly.
As he stated, I don't have the same amount of power as I once did, but I want to make this more comfortable for you. Yeah. I'm going to leave everything open so that way you can do whatever you want when you want. Right? So do we want to use episode 1 Kane or do we want to use episode 9 Kane? Because those could be two completely different outcomes.
1,000%.
So, okay, let's start with episode 1 Kane. Still a man very much in control, right?
Yeah.
Scratch doesn't know his real name, but he does know who he is.
Yeah.
He could assert that dominance over Kane, and most likely Kane is not going to allow that. Sure, episode 1 Kane, 100% they would have had odds.
Yeah.
More often than not, because Kane knows that that's his creator. He knows that he's his creator. Like, why are you telling me what to do? Right?
Right.
On the flip side, episode 9 Kane, he would have been fine with it. Right?
Yeah.
He's now part of that troupe,
yeah.
actually participating with them. So if Scratch were to come to the actual circus with everybody else instead of being on his own, Kane wouldn't have had a problem with it.
Right.
But again, it's all dependent on which Kane we're talking about.
Yeah, but so that now I'm getting more questions about that specific scenario because let's say it's episode 9 Kane, the one that's reformed, chilling, right? The problem though is that now that I think about it harder with Scratch, this might play into why he created a replication of Scratch in a completely different circus. Because, suppose everything's good and well, but he were to one day just bring in Scratch into that circus or into that world in any form. The problem is now Scratch, if he is comparable to Kane, or at least relatable in the sense that that's what Kane's derived from, now you might have the situation of another Kane, but like not the reformed Kane, is the one that wants to be in control.
Well, so that's the thing though, because as I've already stated, that is all because of Abel, his desire for control and aggression, who's now gone. Wherever the fuck he fucked off to, he's gone. Now it's just tame, not as powerful Kane, who is fragments of the original Scratch. Scratch just being a man who wanted to live. Nothing more.
Yeah.
So my argument would still stand with the fact that Kane and Scratch, episode 9 Kane specifically, wouldn't mind Scratch at all. He would still recognize him as his creator. If anything, he would probably identify him as a father figure. Because like you said, he is an essential offspring of what Scratch is.
Yeah.
So I could 100% see, if my theory is correct, that Kane is fragments of Scratch, that he would see a full-blown Scratch as his father.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just, my take on it.
Now, does it answer the question? Does Jax deserve to have Scratch?
Okay, yeah, no, fuck
right?
You know what? Yeah, no, we're going back to that.
Exactly.
Does Jax deserve what happened to him in episode 9? And I will stand on this hill. I'm not going to say that he deserved to, because essentially, like we said before,
yeah,
he is essentially in a prison inside of a prison.
Sure.
He's trapped within his abstracted form, trapped inside of the circus with no way of escaping. Sure, that is hell enough as it is. But at least this way, he won't be able to cause any more harm than he's already done. Because he has done nothing but harm everybody around him, causing the inadvertent death, quote unquote,
yeah,
of 2 circus members, and as far as he's aware, his mother.
Right.
Hey, Martin.
He has. I hate how people are like, oh no, Jax, my poor boy. Like, dude, I'm sorry to break it to you, but he, honest to God, has 0 redeeming qualities.
But I think it could be as little, just to clarify for anyone who completely is on board with your position and doesn't understand why the other people might be. It might not be just that they feel like he doesn't deserve abstraction. It might just be more about the empathetic element, where it's like, even though I know like he kind of deserves it,
Nobody deserves to be abstracted.
right?
Which I could 100% agree with.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to sit here and say that, Jax, he deserves to be redeemed. He doesn't. But he also doesn't deserve to be abstracted. Nobody does. That is honest to God, like you said, a fate worse than death.
Now, this is where I kind of want to throw out a new idea regarding abstraction and the way we look at it, right? Because as you would imagine, and as I'm assuming a lot of the audience, or whoever would be listening to this, what they might have also picked up throughout the series is the religious undertones, or at least some of the themes that are pulled from I will say, Christian lore. Cain and Abel.
Yeah.
The idea. The one thing that we've talked about in the past, but just to clarify for this segment, right?
Mm-hmm.
The idea of abstraction, it's almost like dying, right? It's almost like it, but you have to
dying
realize
implies passing on.
Right.
They're not passing on anywhere.
Well, they're trapped in this void, their own internal void, where it's like, yeah, they're still kind of in there, believe it or not, in a weird way. But like,
which we saw from Jax.
When we saw even kind of, it was implied from, I think, episode 3, where Kinger talks about being with his wife's abstraction, but in the dark, where he could actually feel her essence, right?
Right.
And which is cool. I mean, I think it's better in a way. It's actually better than death for everyone who's not abstracted. For like your loved ones, if they chose to either have you die or be abstracted, they'd probably choose abstraction,
because that means that you're still there.
You're still there, and they could technically reach you, kind of like how Pomni did. But it sucks for you, because every time they're not there, like when they don't go into your soul and whatnot, you're there in the void
with yourself as the warden.
So here's where it gets kind of flipped upside down. This is where I bring in the religious undertones, right?
Okay.
In the sense that I asked the question, what if we're looking at abstraction wrong because we're comparing it to death or dying, right? But death, when we say death, like as you said, you can look into it as passing on, but it's really more about your ending in this realm, right? You're no longer even here, right? Obviously, with abstraction, as we're saying, it's not the case, but with you, typically, sometimes death isn't even, as you said, the worst case scenario. Like sometimes it's actually the means, kind of like in I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. Death was the means of escaping, right? The torture that was beheld, like occurring to the protagonists and whatnot, the characters of that book, right? With in this world, in both the circus as well as just even in real life, the thing is, if we look at abstraction as something more, in a sense, I would say like, okay, it's not really death. So what could it be? My thing is, given that, the way angels are described in the Bible and how, or even just the idea of eyes, right? How, the abstraction, when you become abstracted, you get covered with these eyeballs all of a sudden. That might be an indication that your perception has been altered to a higher degree, because it's kind of like that, the motif of the third eye, people having third eye open. Same thing. It's like it's depicted across different cultures as well, where if you had more eyes,
but all in all, they're all the same depiction of one specific thing.
Right.
Heightened sense of how you can perceive things.
Awareness and perception. Exactly. Right. There's crazy other lore that I could bring into, but I'll stick with just the Bible and how it plays out. With that, especially how angels are perceived too, how a lot of them, I forgot the names of them and there's a whole hierarchy. Seraphims, but I think even higher than them, right?
Seraphims. So I'm not a religious man.
Yeah, neither am I.
Not to say that I don't believe in religion. Right. I do. It's just I don't really do the practices and stuff like that. But that's beside.
But we're just talking about the lore.
From what I can understand, seraphims are supposed to be the highest, right below God,
something like that.
Because they guard God's throne.
Well, like the one with the one I'm thinking of that probably is in that category, right? Would be the wheel one, the one with the
I'm pretty sure that would be a seraphim.
That's what I'm thinking of. But it was perceived to have multiple eyes on it.
Yeah,
similar to how abstractions have all these eyes on them. My thing is, so what if we're looking at it because we're looking at it in a negative manner to be abstracted? I'm thinking, well, what if it's not really a death or an abstraction, like a negative? What if it's just them moving on to a different realm? In a sense, almost like they're being ascended, or that they have ascended.
I will add to that.
Go ahead.
So we could also add a piece of evidence for that, which was in episode 7, the beach episode.
Yes.
We saw what abstraction looked like through Jax's perspective.
Yes. Yeah.
He, obviously, right before he was starting to abstract, he started seeing things, and then he moved on to the whole abstraction process. We saw a smile actually form on his face. He was at peace.
Complete bliss.
If Pomni hadn't have interrupted, now 100%, it probably would have been very different from how episode 9 Jax perceived abstraction, right? Because obviously we got two different views of abstraction, right? Mm-hmm. We got, and oddly enough, they come from the same person. Yeah. We got episode 7, where he was at peace. It was bliss. It was calm. Everything was coming to him where he was like, I'm now going to be a part of something more than just what I am. I could be with my friends again. Or at least I hope that's what he's thinking. He's a jackass. I wouldn't really know.
No, exactly. How we're thinking about it is because we're just diving into
right,
doing a deep dive.
And then episode 9, where it felt more like a prison.
Yeah.
He knew that there was a strong possibility he couldn't come back.
Yeah.
And he was keeping himself locked away.
Yeah.
Multiple versions of Jax were keeping him locked away.
Yeah.
So it's a very strong and a very opposing way of viewing how you, quote, ascend, unquote, as you stated.
Right.
But they both end relatively the same way.
Yes.
Which I think is a very, very interesting way of looking at it.
I think so too, honestly. It's a trip because that's why I'm kind of, again, it leans towards that one theme I brought up earlier about the idea of isolation. It could be torture, but here's where it can, for the most part, what we would imagine, because humans are naturally social animals,
Yeah.
right? So even our AI or NPCs that are created from that AI, etc., they would naturally gravitate to being social. Naturally, I would imagine. Here's where it gets trippy for me, right? I've heard from multiple Christians, because again, I'm just sticking with Christian lore for the
Right.
most part. Christians are said to describe heaven radically different than how we, like, mainstream media would depict heaven. Heaven being like supposedly this paradise or this place where, like, it's just like, you know,
Peace.
the peaceful. Except, but here's the thing: it's a different kind of peace, right? So what it is that, you know, you would think, okay, where everyone is in the sky, like how they portrayed it in This Is the End, where you have all your wishes come true and whatnot. You just think like, I don't think that's quite the case. Well, from what I understand, from how Christians have described it to me, is the idea that you're up there and you're kind of just, in a very weird way, you're in a weird void.
In a weird form of limbo.
In limbo, but like, and there's nothing up there really. There's really nothing up there. It's literally just the void that you're in, right? It supposedly is super beautiful. I think it's just the radios that dropping it on. I think it's supposed to be this type of limbo, right? Nothing's going on there. You're not even really moving. It's more like you're just existing in a plane, and it's so blissful. And I don't know if it's like a visual thing or just a feeling, but you're just there in complete awe for eternity, and nothing can hurt you. Nothing really stimulates you, but you're just at complete peace, right?
Man, that takes a final rest to a whole new meaning.
So exactly, it's almost like a rest, but you're aware. I think you are indeed aware of everything, but you're like, just, you don't really care. You're just there, nothing's happening, and you're just good. Well, the way, supposing it is that way, right? Complete peace. Technically, that's what you got from abstraction, right? If you look at it that way, how it might. We're looking at it in the way where it's like, oh, instead, let's look at it as a type of ascension. You've ascended to a new realm. That realm leading you to a void where nothing really can hurt you, right? You are technically at peace. You are technically there alone, chilling. Just, you know, obviously, if you're in Jackson's situation, it's not ideal. You pushed everyone away, and now you're in that. It's solitude. It's isolation, and you can get to the very bottom of it, which is loneliness. But at the same time, nothing's gonna hurt you anymore. You're at peace. So
This is true.
So it's like, looking at that, I can't help but think abstraction might be both a blessing and a curse. In the sense, yeah, if you're a social person, naturally you would think, oh shit, it's horrible. But you are at peace. You are not being bothered,
Right,
by even just negative thoughts anymore. I mean, unless you're like Jax, where you're holding on to it. But it's like, once you let go, you'll realize, like, you're here. You're in a different plane. It doesn't matter anymore. That's the reality. That might be the deepest meaning I could personally derive out of even something as, I guess you can say, profound as the entire series of the Digital Circus. But that is just a theory, you know, given all its religious undertones. I'm like, I mean, now that we look at it that way, it's like, well, you gotta take the good with the bad.
absolutely.
And it kind of actually goes back with the alternative is going hell, which is also radically different from what I heard, what I've read about. I mean, I again, you and me, not religious people. I try to, but you know, once you get into it, you kind of are like kind of intrigued, like, oh, this is the lore in the Bible. From what I understand, it's like, it's not even, again, radically different from how the mainstream portrays it. It's more about like, hey, it's chaos, but it's not necessarily bad. It's just a matter of, like, you know, it just goes again. It's more in Satan's realm, and it's if you're into that stuff, it's not bad for you. But I mean, of course, that's all its own conversation.
Right.
I won't get into that, but we'll keep it in the scope of the Amazing Digital Circus.
Absolutely.
I'm like, hey, you know, as long as we're on the same track, like, I mean, so that's kind of where I'm at. Like, technically, how that ties in with the original question, Jack got exactly what he wanted, though, which is him pushing everyone away, right? Because that was just, whether it's through insecurity or self-defense, mental defenses, right?
Mm-hmm.
He kind of did achieve his final goal, which is just hey, he doesn't want, well, for whatever it is, whenever he deals with people socially, it always ends in calamity. So in order to avoid that anymore, that's why he was so hell bent on Pomni getting out of the abstraction. He did not want her there because probably out of fear of fucking up her life.
Which is a fair thing to assume.
Exactly. So what better way to ensure you will never hurt anyone again? In a sense, dying, but not really dying, just being isolated from everyone through the abstraction.
Right.
So
making himself so unbearable that no one would want to be near him.
Exactly.
Instead of having himself push everyone away, which I feel like would be harder to do.
Exactly. That in itself, so it's almost like it goes beyond the original question of did he deserve it? It's no, did he do the right thing? Almost. That's kind of a stretch, but
which I feel like that we'd be able to continue in our next segment of the Amazing Digital Thesis, which we'll save for another time. As of right now, we're just hitting the 2-hour mark, which I feel like that this is a good closing point for our talk, at least for this one. I want to leave the audience with that very same question that I tried answering at the very beginning of this segment, and that is, do you believe Jax got what he deserved? If so, let me know. If not, you could explain to us about whether or not you believe that he didn't and that he probably deserved something different, or if he deserved anything at all. But for that, I'm going to leave this as the ending of our part 1 of the Amazing Digital Thesis.